Welcome back to BadgerBlitz TV, your Rivals.com destination for all things Wisconsin athletics. I'm Matt Perkins, joined, as always, by BadgerBlitz.com publisher and editor-in-chief, John McNamara. Great to see you as always, buddy.
Good to see you too, Matt.
John, I don't want to say we're in the doldrums of February, but at least on the football calendar, it is a little bit quiet around these parts these days. But the big news that has been coming in is we're starting to really see who's going to be coming for official visits this spring, looking, the May, June area. Every day, it seems like more and more guys are announcing that they are coming in for officials, guys from all over the country. Jamyan Theodore, who is, I think they like a defensive back down from Chattanooga, Tennessee. He just announced, I think yesterday or the day before, that he's coming on an official. And I had a buddy who's a scout here in Tennessee messaging me like the second that he announced that, he's like, "Hey, that's a good one. Like, that kid is a good one." So I am excited to see him potentially coming up to Madison and at least taking a visit, maybe, getting on some of that Badger Red, John. But who are some other names in the past couple of days that have either announced or sort of hinted at official visits that you think are names that we really need to keep an eye out for as Badger fans?
Yeah, I guess just to start with it, they're really going to pound those first two weekends. And, if you go back to the last couple recruiting cycles, that's what they've done, where Wisconsin's approach, I think it's, common for a lot of schools is, we don't want to be, a lot of fans will ask, do you want to be the first visit? You want to be the last visit? And my response is always, you might not get that last visit. And I think that's kind of the philosophy that the staff is operating on. So you really see them pounding those first two weekends, which is, like the May 30th. And then I think it's like the June 6th. Now, a lot of these guys, they're going to come up on that Thursday to get them in, get that night in, and kind of get as much potential time as you have with them. So, you mentioned a guy like Theodore. I was able to talk to him yesterday. He was offered just over a week ago, and now Wisconsin's his first visit that he's got penciled in for his officials. Wisconsin likes him as a cornerback, and Paul Haynes is kind of leading that recruitment now. But that's a guy that Pat Lambert identified early and got on and got the ball rolling for Wisconsin. So he'll be there on that second weekend. Some new names that we got for that second weekend. Carsen Eloms, another cornerback. He's from Indiana. He put it out there that he's going to be up there a couple weeks ago. Blake Smythe, another kid from Indiana. He's a defensive end. Big Jamir Perez, I got a chance to talk to him probably last week, I think last Monday. 6'4", 330 pounds. He is that true kind of nose, maybe a zero technique. I think Wisconsin would like to have one of those in this class. Ben Novak's going to be up there. He's the current commit for Wisconsin right now. Owen Cable, who just put Wisconsin in his top 6. So, you look up and down these lists, there's, close to 20 guys right now, that are slated for these first two weekends. There will absolutely be more. And you're looking at a class now. There's close to, I think, 25 scholarship seniors. You're going to go to that 1 in 05. I don't know how much that changes for Wisconsin, but this is going to be a big high school class for the Badgers. And you could see that with the amount of guys that they're going to, at least right now, plan to take for official visits.
Yeah. And for me, there's a couple key positions here to really be watching out for. The offensive line, there's a limited amount of spots. I think that we mentioned this last week. And of course, John, last week after we said maybe there's going to be no in-state kids in this class, the first thing that they do is go out and offer Gavin Meyer. So they're either listening to us or we are just overly prescient in our analysis here on BadgerBlitz TV.
Maybe the latter. I don't think they don't clear the offers with me. I can promise you that.
Well, I don't know if they need to or not, but if they want that extra layer of added info, of added value, my DMs are open. No, but there's a couple other guys here that I'm really interested in. Tayshon Bardo is a name at receiver that I really like personally. And I think, he is, along with Zachary Washington, to me, those are sort of, and I guess you mentioned Owen Cobble. Is it Cobble or Cabell? I can't remember.
I think Cabell. I could be wrong though.
Yeah. I should know. He's in my hometown. But those three guys at receiver are all very interesting to me. All different, definitely types of prospects. But I think if Wisconsin comes away with those three, they would be very happy at receiver position for the 26 class.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big group at receiver, and they're in on a few. And you mentioned Bardo. I think Wisconsin's right in the mix for him. Naz Rankin is another kid that they like from Illinois. He's got a handful of schools. His recruitment has really kind of taken off. USC's in there. I know the Illinois, the hometown school, is certainly a big player for him. You mentioned Cable, a guy that Wisconsin's been on for a while. He's been on campus at least twice. I think he's certainly something that certainly a prospect that Wisconsin feels pretty good about at this point. So, and then I think you go to the top of the board, Zach Washington. He's a longtime kid for them, been on campus, 4 or 5 times. So, I think this receiver class gets to 3, potentially even 4, depending on the mix there, depending on who they're able to get. So, to me, it's probably one of the more important positions in this 2026 class, probably right up there with running back as well.
Where do you think they go with running back here? I mean, I think that, the big name that it seems to me, if I was guessing what their board looks like right now, I'd say RB1 is probably Lassiter. But I'm curious your thoughts here on sort of where they're trying to go at running back after taking 0 backs in the 25 class.
Yeah, I think, Amari Latimer's kind of been the swing for the fences guy for them in this cycle. Texas has kind of been linked to the school that's been atop his board, but I know for a fact that Texas is looking at some in-state options as well that grade out pretty high for them. So I don't, he's been a guy that's been on some guest lists and it's fell through. But I think the big piece there is Wisconsin just took his brother in the portal. So he's going to play cornerback for them. That certainly helps. It's not going to put Wisconsin over the top and make them the clear-cut guy. But, he's certainly been someone that's been linked to Wisconsin. And it's going to be, interesting to see who pops up on campus March 8th, because right now, you look at the official visitor board, we don't have a running back that's scheduled to be there. Now, obviously that's going to change, but early on, we don't have that, clear-cut number one guy I think Wisconsin feels great about right now at that running back position.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because you would think that after, bringing 0 backs last year that, they would have some pretty clear-cut targets. But, that'll be an interesting thing to see how, the new staff, at least the changes in the staff, attack that position. And speaking of that, Marcus Sedberry this week was announced for UW as the new GM. And now, John, it sounds like he is going to be not necessarily as involved on the recruiting side, but mostly dealing with a lot of the admin side of it. What is your takeaway here from the news?
Yeah, I think that's probably my biggest takeaway, Matt, is his background seems to be very much of not necessarily, I don't know if you call it behind the scenes, but rev share, obviously that's going to be a big piece. Managing that money with the roster, so very much like the admin side of it, where you talk about a guy like Max who held that title. I don't know if he ever really got up and running at that position truly. I think that he started in January and he was gone in the same month off to USC. So I do know that they plan to bring in someone who is going to carry kind of that recruiting load. So to me, Sedberry and the experience that he has, he's been at a few different schools. He's been in the more administration piece of Wisconsin football, and I think that he'll remain in that with everything that goes into creating a roster, budgeting, and then that'll allow Wisconsin to add another guy who does that recruiting piece to add to Pat Lambert's group. So with that in mind, I like the hire. I think it's kind of forward thinking of what college football is currently and what it's going to be down the road. If this all passes in, I think it's April or May, you're going to have close to $20 million, around $20 million to allocate. How much of that goes to the football program? What kind of tiers do you break that up into? I mean, there's a lot of questions. I'm guessing Sedberry has a vision for that, of how that's going to look. He has some NFL experience. I believe he was with the Eagles for 2 years. So he seems like the right guy or someone who brings those required background pieces to a job that now is very much mirroring what happens in the NFL.
Yeah, that's going to be. I mean, it's like almost from a GM perspective, it's like a cap manager, right?
Yeah.
It's like, that sounds like a lot of the job. And man, this stuff is changing quick, John. Like, yes, we sound like old heads here, but if you had told me 2 years ago that all these teams, they were going to need GMs and cap management and all that kind of stuff, I said, like, I know football's crazy and changing a lot, but my goodness.
Right. And, it's something that I was been thinking about the last couple of days too, is, you look at Max and what he was, exceptional at. It was that relationship building piece. And then you were potentially going to ask him to negotiate deals and contracts with the same guys he's built those relationship pieces. I don't want to say that's like a conflict of interest, but maybe it's better to have someone in the admin side of things to deal with guys that weren't recruited by that same. So I don't know, like you said, Matt, this is all new, but I do think that maybe having someone separate from that recruiting side of it, that's just doing current roster management, that's just handling the money, that is maybe now sitting down with these guys and trying to negotiate contracts with them and their representatives, it might be a healthy separation potentially than a guy like Max who was super involved in the recruiting and the relationship building. And, you've been into their homes, you talk to the parents, you've got them to come to Wisconsin, and then you sit down and talk about money. I think that always kind of, mucks things up a little bit. So maybe having someone separate or someone, not necessarily involved in day-to-day recruiting will be a good thing. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like, and it's tough to say, but I do think that could potentially be a positive there.
I don't know if anyone knows what it's going to look like. I mean, you could, the best prepared schools in the SEC still don't know what it's going to look like.
Right.
So I think that is obviously something for us to monitor. Another thing for us to monitor, I think, is, John, I want to talk a little bit here about sort of changes to the college football playoff and the news that the Big Ten and the SEC are trying to, sounds like, mandate at least 4 teams from each conference getting in. I don't want to ask you like when Wisconsin is going to make the college football playoff because we have no idea. But I'm just trying to I want to talk just a little bit about sort of larger college football. It sounds like they're going to undo the automatic seeding of the top 4 at the meetings next week and just go by the college football playoff rankings for year 2 of the 12-team experiment. We're going to have a salary cap effectively coming in with this in April, more than likely with the $20 million and the rev share that you talked about, and just general changes to the college football playoff. How do you feel like just things are going in college football, and where do you think that Wisconsin's can sort of keep up with the Joneses, your Ohio States, your Michigans, your Penn States, et cetera, as things continue to change?
Good question. I mean, it's a really good question. I don't see schools, you had schools like Ohio State and Oregon with these $1 million, $20 million rosters prior to rev share. I mean, that's not going to change. So, I mean, now maybe they're looking at a $40 million roster. I don't know. It's tough to say that Wisconsin can keep up with that. It really is. I don't think they're ever going to be.
Ohio State's outspending the Marlins.
Right. And when you have the retention that Ohio State seems to be focused on of like, hey, you're going to be a future NFL guy, but playing next year with us might be more beneficial to you financially than going to the NFL. Like Wisconsin, to me, is not getting there anytime soon. So, I don't know if this model is going to create more distance between those quote unquote blue bloods and schools like Wisconsin, or if the portal will keep schools like that in the mix. It's tough to say. I just think the strong teams are going to stay strong because they have that infrastructure, they have the money, they have a lot of things in place. And I think Wisconsin's working to get there, but I don't know if that's a gap that's ever going to be closed. I think a lot of the things that made Wisconsin stand out are gone now. The walk-on program and the player development and the 4th and 5th year guys coming to light in after being in the program for so long. So I don't know. Wisconsin's going to have to find ways to close that gap. I don't know if they'll ever get there money-wise. Maybe the new facility helps. I don't know how much facilities help you in this day and age. So I don't know. I don't see Wisconsin in the college football playoff. Definitely not next year, and really in the near future. But there are so many things that need to just happen in the world of college football that it's tough to really predict anything that's going to happen more than a couple weeks ahead of right now.
I mean, who knows? Maybe Billy is the truth, and Grimes fits perfectly, and they get back to playing physical football. And next thing you know, even with that ridiculous schedule, they're 10-2. Do I doubt it's going to happen? Yeah, I doubt it's going to happen. But hey, there's always room for optimism on the buffet of the Badger football fandom experience.
Very well put, Matt. Yeah, look, I don't know. It's tough. There's so many moving parts right now. Wisconsin's going into a very critical offseason. Spring camp's right around the corner. I think recruiting can always get fans fired up, but I guess you're always one quarterback away from being a true contender in the Big Ten and the SEC, and those are the two conferences that matter.
And you're also one quarterback injury away from being
yes.
completely irrelevant.
As Wisconsin knows all too well.
Unfortunately, they do. Bernie and I had talked with Brady Collins last week on our podcast, and it does seem like if there was one thing that I came away from that, which I to plug myself, obviously, it was a really good conversation. He was really candid about some stuff, and I tried to needle him a little bit and ask him some tougher questions. But I will say the one thing that I really came away impressed with was sort of it does sound like with Grimes in the building, they are going like really back to the physical football going on offense. And I think that will, at least aesthetically, do a lot for Wisconsin fans to get them to buy back into Fickell and the staff.
And I think that's important, right? And I think you used the correct word there, like aesthetically, it's not going to be, college football just isn't what it was under Barry Alvarez and Brett Bielema. So, I mean, that's not what it's going to look like, but I think the belief behind it or the philosophy behind it and how it might look should resemble what I think Wisconsin fans are more comfortable with. And, it's wild to watch like the basketball program take a big leap on offensively and have so much success, and to see the leap that Wisconsin tried to make and have it be so unsuccessful. I mean, those two parallels are really, really interesting. But I think I think I've said this before, Grimes to me represents the right thing. Will he be the right guy to do it? I have no idea, but I do think what he brings to the table is the right move for Wisconsin. I think it's also the move that a lot of fans wanted to see. So, I mean, we'll have to see if Jeff Grimes is the right guy and he implements the right things, but I do think it's a move in the right direction for a variety of reasons. Just how that plays out, though, we'll have to see this spring and obviously into the fall.
Well, John, you mentioned the basketball team. Let's end our conversation here today talking about this team that has now won 5 straight games since we last talked. A really impressive victory at Mackey Arena over the weekend, 94-84, even without Kamari McGee. And then a dominant victory against Illinois, just the other day. I think, what was that, Tuesday night? I want to say something like that. And John Tanji continues to be one of the best transfers in the country. We don't, or I should say, we're not getting the typical February slide that we've seen under the Badgers and under Greg Gard recently. It's just the opposite. They are definitely peaking at the right time. Let's talk about Tanji first. Was back-to-back 30-point games. First Badger to do that since Michael Finley. I was shocked. I could have sworn Alondo Tucker had back-to-back 30-point games at some point during that 05-06 season, but I guess I was wrong. So John, where is, I think we talk every week, like, oh, what's the ceiling for this team? But just as of right now, like, vibes are high. Things are going well. The rest of the regular season, they've got Oregon. this weekend on Saturday. Then they've got Washington to get at home. And then, the big one is March 2nd at Michigan State. I think, could be, I don't want to say it's not a season defining game, but, if they get a couple breaks the right way, and Michigan drops a couple, they could be sitting at the, in the top of the Big Ten standings for the regular season, which to me still would be beyond shocking.
Yeah, I mean, truly now after you get that road win against Purdue, then you take care of business against Illinois. I mean, a Big Ten title is certainly worth talking about and realistic. You talked about that Michigan State game, and that game looms large. That could be, it absolutely will have some title implications, and whoever comes out of that game might very well win the conference. Now Michigan is very much up there as well, along with Purdue. I think UCLA still has probably a fighting chance to be in there. Apologize for that, but yeah, it's just not a position you thought Wisconsin would be in at the start of the year, and it's just an awfully impressive job that Greg Gard has done. And after the last couple of weeks here, you've seen him mention the conversation of not only Big Ten Coach of the Year, but like National Coach of the Year. And I think he's earned that. We've kind of went in depth on the changes that he's made, and the decisions that he's made, and everything that has really seemed to work out. And I think he deserves all the praise that he's been getting. And every move that he's made seems to be the right move. So I think they're reaping the benefits of that. And now they have to close out this month strong. And I think a lot of fans want to see what he does in March, particularly in the NCAA tournament. But I mean, where they are at right now, I think have exceeded even the loftiest of expectations.
The ball is moving too. The ball is moving around, and that's the big difference between this team and an AJ Storr, Johnny Davis team. Is that Tanjay, for as well as he scores, and he's been scoring really well. The ball, it doesn't feel like it's the same offense every time. Get it to him, on the wing, on the high post, and clear out and let him operate by himself. He's getting points within the flow of the offense. And that to me is pretty big. Yes, I know he had, 0 assists, I want to say, in one of these couple games, but I feel like he's getting a lot of hockey assists. I feel like a lot of those are he's making the pass to the guy that makes the pass for the for the assist. So I'm not as concerned with that stat right now. And Tanjay might be able to go down as one of the greatest, at least transfers in basketball program history. That's for darn sure. And, depending on how far they go, I mean, he could rise up into lore that, is usually reserved for Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, he's been great, and he's been exactly what you wanted. And I think people were very upset when AJ Storr left, but that transaction probably hasn't worked out better for Wisconsin. Or could not have worked out better for this guy. He's been a revelation. I mean, he's in the conversation for first team All-American. I know Player of the Year might be a touch lofty.
I think Cooper Flagg has that locked up.
Right. I mean,
maybe unless from Auburn.
Right. I mean, those are two guys that are probably a notch above. But look, I mean, if he puts his team on his back and wins a Big Ten title, or helps them win a Big Ten title, he's right up there. I mean, to say that at the start of the year that John Tanjay would have been in the All-American conversation, because a lot of people probably thought that Amos was the biggest get that they got in this transfer portal class. So it was the right move. But I mean, you talk about fit, and he has fit what Wisconsin has wanted to do to a T, and obviously a big reason why the Badgers are in contention for a Big Ten title right now.
Yeah, John, well, you fit what we're trying to do to a T here on BadgerBlitz TV, and we appreciate everyone tuning in who is trying to fit in or fit out. If you're LeBron James, I don't know, here with what we're doing on BadgerBlitz TV. Make sure you are subscribed to BadgerBlitz.com for all the best Wisconsin Badgers information and message boards and opinion pieces and just coverage anywhere in the known universe. Until next time, he's John McNamara, and I'm Matt Perkins. This is BadgerBlitz TV, and we'll see you in the den.